So today we're talking about living from your heart, and I'm specifically going to cover the top 3 things I see with client after client that's stopping them from living from their heart in the world. And what I find with people is that if they're not living from their heart in the world, like on themselves, they often feel a lot of stress, they often feel a lot of anxiety within their body, as well as a lot of worry going on through their mind if they're living from all of their thoughts rather than living from a deeper place within. And then on their purpose, they're feeling like stuck, they're feeling like they're struggling, they feel like they're lost, which is another symptom of being in the head so much. But when you come from that inner space, instead you start to get clarity, you have that forward movement, and you've got that direction in your life. And likewise with relationships, if you're coming from your head and trying to connect with the head of other people, instead you're going to feel a level of disconnect, you're going to start to feel alone and isolated from the world. Instead, when you can start coming from your heart in the world and connecting with other people from a heart space, living from your heart, that's when all the connection happens, the meaningful relationships with all people start to happen, and that's your experience of what is to be alive. And that's why I'm excited to be with you today, because living from your heart is one of the most beautiful things that you can do, because this isn't about information, right? If you want more information, it's just going to send you further into your thoughts. Instead, this work that I do with the heart connection work is about transformation. So it's about transforming your experience of what it is to be alive. And that's why I do what I do, because client after client that comes through this training gets to live from their heart in the world, and that's what we're talking about today. And that's what I see the world doing in the future. Like, can you imagine a world where everyone was not just making that transition from their head to their heart, but then they started living from their heart in the world? There'd be no more wars, there'd be no more disconnect, instead it'd be a whole world filled with connection, with love, with peace. And that's totally possible, because every single person on the planet has a heart. So the number one biggest thing that I see with client after client when they come into this work that prevents them from stopping from living from their heart is because they're instead living from their head in the world, from all of the thoughts that are going through their head. So, for example, it wasn't that long ago I had a client come through the program, and her life was quite limited. She was in the house most of the day, going round and round inside her thoughts. She had the radio on all the time, talkback radio, and that's how she got her interaction. And she was disconnected from a lot of people in the world. And she was over it. She wanted to live a bigger life. She wanted to live a fuller life, and she didn't know how to do that, right? So in the program, she learned how to stop all of those thoughts in the first technique. She learned how to come into her heart space as an experience, and then also how to live from that space in the world. So how to speak from that space, how to follow the pull of her heart, right? And what happened is that she started getting out of the house more. She ended up making a lot more friends, like heart-connected friends. And she also came into a relationship with a guy that she hadn't been in a relationship for 8 years, all because she was starting to follow her heart in the world. And at the end of the program, I said to her, what do you feel was the number one biggest thing for you in the program? And it surprised me, and she said, look, you're not going to believe this, but the biggest thing is for the last 30 years, the first thing I've been doing in the morning is turning on the radio, right? And I was like, yeah. And then she was like, no, you don't understand, because then the last thing at the end of the day, what I do is turn the radio off. I'm like, right. And then she said, I don't do that anymore. For 30 years, I've been listening to the radio. Now I can't stand listening to the radio. And I said, why is that? And she said, because it drowns out this connection that I have with my heart. And then if I can't feel my heart, if I can't listen to my heart, if I can't follow my heart, right, it blocks me off from life. So getting rid of the radio, which is symbolic for her of the radio in her mind, turning that off, allowed her to come into her heart and then follow her heart in the world. And this happens time and time again. When people get out of all of the business of their thoughts and have that being the director, instead come into their heart space and allow their heart to be the director of their world, that's when everything opens up. Like for her, with all the friendships and getting out of their house and meeting a guy, right? That's what's possible, and that's what's possible for you too, okay? Because you can start living this heart-based life and transform your experience of being alive in the world. And the second biggest thing that I see that blocks people from living from their hearts in the world is similar to living from their thoughts, but it's about worrying about the future, right? They get so worried about the future that they don't actually start living, right? And then unfortunately they die because they're worried about the future. And what happens in the future is that everyone dies. I'm going to die. You're going to die. Your neighbours are going to die. Your best friend's going to die. Everyone dies, right? But so many people are worried about the future, and it stops them from living from this heart space. Yeah, and for example, this happened to me quite a few years ago. I was always worried about the future, and I started to plan everything and control everything, right? So to break that, I bought a bicycle, flew from Australia over to Romania, and cycled from Romania all the way to Paris, about 4,500 kilometers over 7 months time, yeah? And I was planning everything, right? And then what happened, I was up in the mountains of Switzerland, and up there storms can happen like mega quick, right? There's storms come out of the blue. So I'm cycling around this big mountain pass, and as I come around, up in the distance, because I couldn't see because of the mountain, came around, in the distance were all these thunderstorm clouds, okay, so black clouds with lightning going through. And what was happening for me is that I was starting to plan everything for the future, right? So my head was like, I'm worried that I'm going to get struck by lightning because there's no trees up there. I'm worried that I'm going to get cold, okay, I'm going to get wet and then cold, and then I'm going to die of hypothermia. So my head started like planning all of these things. Maybe I should like turn around, maybe I should go and try and find somewhere, but it was all grass. Like I was up in the mountains, there was no trees around. But instead, like I came into my heart space and followed my heart, and it said to cycle towards the lightning, and I was like, that's crazy, you know. Well, I could die. But anyway, I started cycling, despite what my head was saying, right, towards this storm, okay. And I could hear the thunder, right, and the lightning up there is just incredible. And there I was, like in Lycra, cycling towards this big storm. And I was like, well, what's going to happen when I get to the storm, right? But as I did that and was following my heart, like living from my heart, okay, it guided me towards the storm. And little did I know, but further around the mountain was a forest, right, that was protected from the storm. Okay, so followed that, went into the forest, set up my tent, because that was the direction of my heart, was to set up the tent. Set up the tent, and as soon as I locked up my bike and got in the tent, that's when it started to pour down rain. I could feel the wind coming, all the lightning was above, I was in the right place so no tree would fall on me, and the storm passed overhead, and there was all of this thunder and lightning. I could hear all of that going on, and I was protected just because I followed my heart in the world, yeah? Rather than listening to all of the thoughts and the planning, I was actually following my heart in the world. And that's just what happens when you start following your heart in the world, is if you have the trust in that, it'll lead you to synchronous events, magical events, things that you can't think of, even imagine. And that's when the flow starts to happen in your world again. And this is something that's available for you as well. Now, the other thing that happens if you're living from your head rather than from your heart is you tend to control, or you try and control everything, yeah? And for example, there was a client that came into the work not that long ago, and every moment from the moment she woke up through to the moment she fell asleep was planned. Everything was planned. Her whole day was controlled. From when she had breakfast to when she had the lunch break, everything was planned, and there was not one spare minute in there for herself, right? And she was wondering why she had an anxiety disorder. And if something went out of plan, it was a major freak out, like her world would fall apart, right? So she came into into this work because she wanted to have more freedom in her life. So she came in, we were able to get her out of all of the thoughts that were controlling everything, come back into her heart, and then start living from her heart in the world. And what happened when she listened and followed and was living from her heart is that at the beginning she planned to have breaks so that she could be with herself, right? So 5 minutes, then back into the work, 5 minutes back into the work. And this went on for a couple of weeks. But at the end of it, she was like, well, this isn't really living. Like, she was at home doing design work at home, right? And she's like tuning into her heart, and she's like, this isn't really what I'm on the planet for. Okay, so she started listening to that and being guided by that, and because she had the space rather than like controlling everything, she created space to actually live, right? So then she started following her heart in the world, ended up letting go of all of the design work which wasn't in alignment with her. All she wanted to do was like teach people about like natural eating and health. She started following her heart in the world, and the latest I heard that she's now teaching, right? She's teaching about how to eat a healthy diet and how to look after your health, yeah? So that's a complete transformation from where she was at, trying to control everything. It's having a lot more fluidity in her life, and that's what's available for you when you come into the heart connection work. And the thing is, with this heart connection work, it's a long-term fix. It's not like a short-term thing, because it's something that stays with you. So it's not like one of those workshops where, wow, that was amazing, and then you get on with your life. No, the heart connection work, it stays with you. It goes with you. And that's why it's so powerful. And if you're wanting these results, right, to start living from your heart in the world, the first thing is to decide, you know, is that something that would interest you? Is that something that's going to be life-affirming for you? Is that something that's going to give you freedom? And at a deeper level, like, that decision is saying yes to all of the peace within you. It's saying yes to all the clarity within you. And it's saying yes to all of the connective, meaningful relationships it can get created from living from your heart, yeah? And if that decision is no, then you're probably going to be deciding to stay with the anxiety, deciding to stay with feeling stuck, alone, lost, isolated, and all of that. But if it is a yes, then the next thing is to reach out. And what I mean by that is that below this video, there's a form, right? And if you decide that, yes, I do want to live from my heart in the world, then you can book what's called a head-to-heart session with either me or one of my team members. And the way to do that is to pick a date, pick a time, fill out the application, be as detailed in that application as you can. On the next page after you apply, there's a training video that goes through the 6 techniques that I teach. And make sure to take notes when you watch that, so that we're on the same page when we connect. Yeah, because it's a powerful call. Because this call is designed to create a pathway for you to go from your head to your heart and then start living from your heart in the world. So on that call, it'll be a pathway, either 1 to 3 steps, on how you can get out of all of the craziness and busyness of your thoughts that are stopping you from living from your heart in the world. On that call, we'll design a pathway to go from your head into your heart, so that you can start having all of the peace, the calm, the love, the wisdom that's contained within you. And it's also designed as a pathway to get out of feeling stuck and struggle and lost, and back into the clarity of the forward movement and direction. And also how to get out of feeling alone and isolated and disconnected from people, and create that pathway to instead having connective, meaningful relationships with every single person that you're in contact with. And that's what gives you the real freedom to start living from your heart in the world. And then towards the end of the call, if I feel that there's a fit and it makes sense, then we can explore ways that we can work further together. And if it's not, then I'll also let you know that too. But either way, it's a powerful call, because you're going to get clarity on the steps on the pathway to go from your head to your heart, and then start living from your heart in the world. So thank you for watching this video. Make sure to book your head to heart session below now, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.